fingers crossed, guys. Hope for the best and all that sort of thing. Oh, it's so slow, this really is. Oh, I should be live, am I? Am I live? Right. Excuse me. Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Facebook live stream that I'm doing. I was only thinking about doing it today. Doing this live stream today because I did one last night on YouTube, as you know. Indeed, there's a link on my page to that, so you can watch that. But I thought I'm going to do another one today because I've got a little bit of extra information, and also some of you on YouTube, on Facebook, might want to comment when you couldn't comment yesterday on YouTube. So that's what I'll do. So how many people are watching right now? Probably a few of you. But I've got a little bit of a prepared statement to read. It like a lead off. It won't be as long as the one I did last night. And indeed, if you want to know more details then of what I'm about to say, of what I've said, then go to the YouTube live stream I did, where I go into a little bit more detail. Oh, it's some. Okay, so what I'll do is I will. Let's just have a look what I've got here. A few people like the YouTube, like the comment, I like the thing. That's cool. What's this? Whoops. Oh, hello, Rob. How are you? Rob Cohen is there. How's old Robert? And I'll just go on to. I'll open up another tab because I don't want to close the player. At least it prompts you this time. Doesn't automatically just end the stream. Yep. Great. Oh my goodness me! Candace Owens is live now. I'm competing with Candace Owens. Oh dear. It's no competition, is it? Stick with me, guys. Stick with me. You can watch Candace anytime. So this is about the developments that have happened in the run-up to the US presidential election 2020, because it's not been. It's not going to be a normal election. In fact, I would go as far as to say it's not going to be an election at all. It's going to be something entirely different, as I talked about last night. But I mean, I know a lot of us have different ideas about this, about what we'd like to happen, and I mean, I am partisan in this. I'm not neutral. I do hope President Trump will win, and he will keep his presidency. I do hope he will, for reasons I've explained many times. I think he's a good guy. In fact, I think he's a light worker. As you may know what light workers are if you watch Carol Noonan and several other people who talk about light workers. He is one of those. It's totally unknown territory. We don't know what's going to happen. It's something we've never seen before. Ever. But I think there's only one certainty in this situation, and that is on the morning of November the 4th, it will be announced that Joe Biden has won. That's his rival, the Democrats. No matter what happens, it's going to be announced that Joe Biden has won. Now, you may think, Ben, you know, it's not like me. I'm normally an optimist. I'm not normally so defeatist. You might be thinking, well, look, bear with me, because this does have a happy ending. I'm sure of that one way or another. I'm just saying it'll be announced that Joe Biden has won. This doesn't mean that he has won. There's a very big difference. Oh, hello to Mandy. How are you? And James Wright. Greetings. And Julie Phelps. Hi, Julie. How are you? Thanks for joining me today. Rob Cohen says, I know, little man, you are quick with the diagnosis of craziness. What's this say here, Rob? When you meet the truth you don't like and you feel yourself as the homo normalis, you have locked up crazy people and normal people manage the world. Who then is to blame for all the misery? Not you, of course. You only do your duty. And who are you to have an opinion of your own? I know you don't have to repeat it, but it isn't you that matters, little man. But when I think of your newborn children and how you torture them in order to make them normal human beings after your image, after your image. Wilhelm Reich. Yes. Oh, very good quote, Rob. Wilhelm. I didn't know that was a quote from Reich, but I mean, he's a very wise man. Doesn't surprise me he said something like that. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. I was just thinking when you were reading that, who is that? It sounds like words of wisdom. Hello, Donna. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you here. So, what's obvious here, what we see here, like, because I said Joe Biden will. It'll be announced that Joe Biden has won. This doesn't mean that Joe Biden has won. The thing is, there's not going to be an election, as I was explaining last night. I mean, I do hope you'll go and watch last night's live stream as well when I finish this one, because I'll go into a bit more detail with that one, because some of the questions that came up were really, really good. But there's not going to be an election. It's going to be a charade, and what's more, President Trump has said so, and that's really, really encouraging. That really is. It just goes to show how desperate the deep state are to remove Trump. They're absolutely desperate to remove him. They can't even wait 5 years. They cannot wait 5 years. It's like, you see, if I was them, I'd say, well, look, okay, he is, it's him. He's messed up. We messed up. We allowed this maverick to get into power. We allowed him to get into. Hello, Yam's there. Hi. We allowed this maverick outsider, this anti-establishment figure, to get into the White House against all our machinations. This is what the 2016 effect is all about. But let's just give it. Let's. Now he's there. We've got to leave him there. It's only 4 years. Then we can get back on track. But no, they are pulling out all the stops to manoeuvre Trump out of his rightful place this November. Literally next month, in a few weeks, less than a month's time. They're really pulling out the stops to do that. And that is very, very strange. It's very strange indeed. They are desperate. They can't wait 4 years to get him out of power. They have to get him out now. And that is very unusual indeed. It's like if they leave him in for another 4 years, he could do things that could scupper the New World Order altogether. And that's something that really bothers them, I think. Massiege is there. Massiege. Pride and dignity, Brother Porter. I won't say what your real name is, but I know you're a hospital porter. I'm not bad, thanks, Brother Porter. Paul, is this Facebook only? Hi, Paul. Paul Armstrong's there. It is for now, but I'm going to download this and post it onto YouTube. Okay, I'll do that. One moment, ladies and gents. I've just got to look something up. Because right, what have we here? I'm just checking. Okay, guys. Yeah, there's two major problems with this, with the election coming up, or this non-election. One is postal ballots, and the other is opinion polls. I'm going to go through two of those. Now, I do look at both sides of this argument. I know that it's easy to get caught in an echo chamber where you don't have your finger on the pulse of the mood of the people, which where it comes to the whole opinion poll thing, it is sort of kind of, you could say, well, because you have certain ideas, you see things through the ideas of your own side, you don't see the other side. The truth is, I do. I try to look at both sides of this. I try to be objective when I'm dealing with this issue. And and I watch some of the pro-Biden people, for example, Kevin Logan, Christy Winters, and Vaush. I was watching a video by Vaush. Vaush is spelled V-A-U-S-H, and he's like a left-wing YouTuber. And he made a video the other day. It was virtually a victory dance. It was really amazing. It was called Trump Faces a Crushing Defeat in the Upcoming Election. It did, yeah. And that's what it was called. Mandy Green says, aren't they all different? Check. Oh, different cheeks of the same arse. Personally, I don't want any of them, period. As all bread and circuses. They're bread and circus, may actors and icons, idols, idol, lol. You know, Mandy, I think before 2016 I would have agreed with you. But times have changed and things have changed. In the post-2016 world, there are different rules in play. Hey, Julie. Thanks very much. You know, I'll tell you how desperate the deep state are to get Trump out. They're trying to silence us. For example, I'm not allowed. There's a subject I cannot talk about, or this live stream will be deleted. Facebook have banned it, but it's something named. It's something that is named after the 17th letter of the alphabet. If I mentioned this 17th letter of the alphabet and the anonymous nature of what accompanies it, this live stream will be immediately deleted. They've banned all discussions of that subject. Why? Why is it? Because supposedly it's just a joke. It's supposedly just nonsense. It's a silly little internet cult apparently. But they've banned it. Facebook, you can't discuss this 17th letter of the alphabet on Facebook. It's crazy. You know why? Because they're desperate. Because the information given out by this anonymous source is real. That's it. Now, what you find in U.S. elections is the opinion polls are normally very close, and I've always noticed this. I've always noticed there's a kind of because the United States politics is for the last few decades has been dominated by just two parties: the Democratic Party and the Grand Old Party, the GOP. These two parties date back to the 19th century or before, and they basically are the only two parties in play. I mean, they're smaller parties, but they never get anywhere. What you'll find is in whenever you have elections of any kind, it tends to be kind of a 50-50 split, almost to the point where the opinion polls are very, very close. Very often, decisions of who's president and who's not, or who's a senator or congressman and who's not, it's always on a knife edge. That's the United States of America and that's how it works. I've always noticed this when I follow U.S. presidential elections, which are very widely discussed beyond the borders of the U.S. It's usually, what I find is it's usually 2 to 3 points between them. In the 2016 election, that's what it was. Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, 2 to 3 points. I think the biggest gap was when Obama was up against John McCain. He had a 5.4 lead, and that's about as far as it gets until now. I'll just go to this website here. This is the Project 538 poll aggregator. So this is like the poll of polls. Because I'll say a little bit more about opinion polls in a minute and how they work. But basically, there are lots and lots of different polling organisations. There are dozens of them involved in this. They often disagree with each other quite considerably. They come up with different views. A poll aggregator takes the results of all those different organisations and produces an average. That average should give you a pretty clear view of the American opinion. Now, what we have here, now, as I said, bear in mind that opinion polls in the United States tend to be very close. The two main parties, the Democrats and the GOP, they are generally 50-50 to the point where there's usually only 2 to 3% difference between them in who gets voted for and who doesn't. Until now. This is the current situation, right? Joe Biden is ahead of Trump, and not just ahead. He's more than 10 points. He's 10.1 points ahead. He's currently scoring 52.1 on voting intentions. Trump 42%. Biden is leading him by 10, but in double digits. It's incredible. This is not something I've seen before in US polling averages. And what's more, what you'll find is that the polls, as I say, are always very close. They tend to narrow even more as you get closer to the election. But what we've seen here, we've seen a divergence since June. In fact, it happened very abruptly in June. There was a massive divergence of the polls. They were round about 40% apart until then. I mean, they started off on the average of 2 to 3%. They went to about 4% in May, and then suddenly they start zooming apart. I'm just looking at the graph now. They narrowed slightly at the beginning of August. Since then, they've reached their current level. They're not narrowing They're not narrowing, they're diverging. It's not a convergence, it's a divergence. That shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen, guys. Anyway, Mandy, you say they then say alleged and hearsay, and what change for you then, or bit the change? What was it said by 17 law? But the 17th letter of the alphabet is supposedly giving out secret information from inside the Trump administration, and basically saying they're going to bring down the New World Order, what they call the cabal, the deep state. We've fed lots of crap and kept in the dark about things, Donna. Yeah, we have done. Yes, definitely. Paul Armstrong says, I reckon any live stream on the JQ will be shut down quickly as well. It probably would, Paul. I mean, I don't mind people discussing that particular issue. I mean, I've made an entire video on that particular issue, which I won't utter because for that reason. But the video was removed from YouTube for hate speech, when there's absolutely no hate speech in it at all, quite the opposite. But it can be found on my BitChute channel and indeed on my Library and Odyssey channels as well. I'm going to have to join some more of these alternative YouTube platforms as well. Yeah. Hi, Keith. How are you? So, what this means is, I mean, what this means, these opinion polls, the fact that it means that Joe Biden has really captured the nation's heart. I don't know how many Americans are watching this, but you have been totally and utterly enthralled by Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a charismatic, moral, and spiritual leader. He literally is what Rodney from Only Fools and Horses calls the shadow behind the gasworks. He is literally the person talked about. If you watch my Apocalypse video, he's the person talked about by the character in The Lady in the Water. Yeah, if you drive along an American street anywhere, you literally can hardly see where you're going, because every single front garden has these big banners and these big billboards that say, "I'm riding with Biden." It's everywhere. He's seen as the saviour of the nation. He's adored and admired by millions everywhere because he's so far ahead in the polls, isn't he? On the other hand, Trump on the other hand, under the 4 years of President Trump, the country has been destroyed. The economy has crashed. Trump is a warmonger. Since in the last 4 years, Trump has invaded 12 countries. He sent the military in. He's invaded 12 countries, including Algeria, Portugal, North Yorkshire, Scotland, Oxford, and lots of other places like that. And these nations have been devastated with depleted uranium, and every single day plane loads of coffins, flag-draped coffins of dead soldiers come back, and the injured ones are crawling around in wheelchairs with no legs and things like that. That's what Trump has done over the last 4 years. That's how awful he is, and that's why he is so less popular than Joe Biden, isn't it? Yeah. But of course, I'm being sarcastic, don't you? Because it just doesn't fit. It literally, and as I said, I have made an objective to overcome my own bias. I've really tried to be objective. I've really tried to make an effort to see things from the bigger picture. And I'll tell you what, that not only is that, obviously I'm being sarcastic about Trump, but I was about Biden as well. Joe Biden is not some great powerhouse of hopes and dreams. He is, to quote Christy Winters, a pair of loafers. Even the people who say they're going to vote for him, they're saying, well, I don't really want to vote for him, but I've just got to get rid of Trump. They don't like him. They don't support him. They think he's horrible. The people who support him they think he's stupid. He's a stupid old fart. He can hardly string a bloody sentence together. He can only stand up straight these days. He's 77, so he's 3 years older than Trump. Neither of the candidates are young. But Trump is clearly far more hale and hearty. He's in much better physical and mental shape for a man of his years. Now, Joe Biden, the attitude that I get from people on the bread tubers, people like Vosh and Christy Winters and Kevin Logan, is that we have to vote for him because we've got to stop Trump. That's the only reason. The absolutely only reason. They even pour scorn on the Bernie Sanders supporters. They call them Bernie or Busters, which means basically because Bernie Sanders couldn't become the nominee, they're just going to give up altogether. And they say, no, you've got to vote for this horrible individual because to get rid of someone even more horrible. Now, that's not a very good basis for a campaign, is it? if you think about who really wants to vote for someone for that reason. I mean, how are you really going to go and stand in a queue in a polling station and just sit there and go and stand there for ages to vote for a guy you don't like and just think, oh God, I hate this guy I'm going to vote for. I really hate it. I'm going to do the usual, put a mask, a handkerchief over my face, which used to be symbolic, of course, but now is now obligatory, as discussed as I vote for him. That's not the sort of thing that normally motivates people to come out in great numbers. I would not do that. I would not bother to get out of my bed and go to the polls, or even answer a polling agency to say I'm going to vote for this guy for that reason. I'm not going to say. I wouldn't say, look, okay, I really, really can't wait to vote for this guy because I hate the orange man bad so much that this guy, and he's a walking ballot box for all my hatred, so I can pour. He's a black hole for every anti-Trump sentiment I or anyone else has ever had, but that's all he is. He doesn't offer anything. He's one of the most unoriginal, uncharismatic, staid, conventional, boring people I've ever seen in politics. And he has, and this guy, this person I've just described, is 10 points ahead in the polls in a country which is notoriously split, is notoriously notoriously ambiguous in its views. And I'll give you an example here, right? Let's have a look. Florida. Now, Florida is notorious for being the most divided half and half state in the entire union. If you remember that, in 2000, George Bush and Al Gore were both competing to become president. As far I didn't bother me, couldn't give a damn myself because they're both scumbags. So it didn't really matter either way. Very different from now. But you remember what happened was Al Gore contested because Bush won very narrowly because he got Florida. The Florida vote was like really, really narrow. It's always really narrow. Florida is notorious for being just like it's 50%. It's just under or just over 50% for everything. So if you're with a Floridian and you said to him, with a group of Floridians, and you said, look, what shall we eat for dinner today, guys? Shall we have ice cream or shall we have a mashed up toad? They sort of think about it for a bit, and they say, they cast lots and things like that, and they write down what they thought. Probably you get like 50.1% would say ice cream. That's what they're like. Well, let's look at Florida. Look at Florida right now. Biden leading 4.4%. The notoriously fickle and ambiguous Florida is now Biden's 4.4% in Florida. So Biden's managed to do what no other political candidate has ever done. He's knocked Florida off the fence. This is really weird. Now, Sargon of Akkad did a video the other day. I don't know if you know Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin. Very, very interesting guy. He's not a loony like me. He's very, very normal compared to me. He doesn't believe in UFOs. That he thinks the 17th letter of the alphabet is just an internet LARP. But he did a video called "Is Trump Losing?" and he was like really trying desperately to try and rationalise what I've just described. This what Styx Hexenhammer, another great commentator, calls the enthusiasm gap, because of course it's the other way round. It's the scenario I just gave you, this imaginary sarcastic scenario, is the exact opposite. It's Trump who has the enthusiasm, even more so than before in 2016. Hillary Clinton at least had a bit of enthusiasm. Joe Biden's got none. People are literally just sitting around waiting to vote for him because they hate Trump. Are we honestly saying the majority of people in the country want to do that? Trump, on the other hand, he's filling stadiums at his rallies. He's got people canvassing for him on the streets. They're knocking on doors. The enthusiasm for him is palpable. If anything, I think it's risen since 2016. Some people said it's declined. I don't see it. I think if anything, it's risen. Or maybe it's just because I'm comparing it to Biden. What I'm saying is it possible these polls are not accurate? Let's have a look at it for a moment, okay? Because I'll let you know. So I'm just going to talk to people in the chat for a moment, but I'll let you know a few other things. But anyway, Paul Armstrong says, yeah, Paul, talking about my video I made, which was banned. Yes, it was banned. It's crazy. George McKinley says, yes, Sleepy Joe. Yeah. He is. You see, he is. He's called that because he looks like he's out to lunch half the time. I mean, Sticks Hexenhammer says that he had a relative. I think it was his great uncle who had Alzheimer's, and he said Sleepy Joe definitely has the early on stages of Alzheimer's. He probably doesn't have long to live. But of course, he doesn't need to live long because he's got his little Grima worm tongue whispering in his ear, whispering in the ear of the old King Theoden. You remember in Lord of the Rings? And Theoden is this dishevelled little homunculus, this little mummified creature, and there's Wormtongue whispering in his ear. The power of Saruman is like corrupting him. Kamala Harris, of course, yeah. She's your president. She's your woman of colour. That's your president. If this goes ahead. Now, Paul says, I want at least 4 more years of Trump entertainment. It will be dull with Sleepy Joe and Harris. It certainly will, Paul. I mean, if for no other reason, it's going to be incredibly. It's going to be another day at the office. They're going to drag all the populism, they're going to drag it. They're going to try and drag it back to normality. We know normality in this world is one of the most horrible things of all. And Paul says here, it's not looking good for him, however. COVID might not have done him in physically, but electorally, I think it will. It looks like the COVID-19 issue hasn't actually affected the polls, but other things have, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And Paul says, I know Lisa GST Phillips thinks he will win, however. Well, Paul, I do too, but he's not going to win the way we think he's going to. I'll talk a bit more in a minute. I'll talk about exactly what I think is going to happen, how this is going to pass, or the best guess I can. I'll give you the best guess I can. Ninja Pete the Kraken, any notion on the 17th letter of the alphabet, Crack Ben? Yeah, I can't even say the word you've posted here, Ninja, because this live stream will disappear. Your comment now will probably vanish as well. It's ridiculous and it's stupid that this subject has been banned by Facebook, and it's been banned because they're terrified of it. That's why. They're absolutely terrified of it because it's giving out information, it's spreading information that is genuinely deceitful. I know not everyone agrees with that. I know Kev Baker, of course, has his own ideas on this. He thinks it's all a load of rubbish, and I mean, I don't have a problem with that. Kev's a good guy, but yeah, I don't think it is. I think there's something to it. I think there's something to it. But anyway, is it possible for the polls to give out false data? Because on the surface it seems impossible. Let me just tell you this, okay? I've been looking into this. I'm trying to find out an answer to this question. Because there's this enormous conundrum that Sargon was talking about. Political polling is one of the few areas in American life which has survived basically unchanged since the advent of the internet. And while that may be about to change, it's not clear that it would be a good thing. It may seem strange to assert that a poll can measure the preferences of an entire country by talking to as few as 800 people, but the maths works if those 800 people are selected through a truly random process. Think about it this way. A certain proportion of Americans currently intend to vote for Donald Trump in the upcoming presidential election. We can't directly observe it, but we know it's there. Polling is how we indirectly estimate that proportion. Of course, over the course of the poll, you might, by pure chance, call a cluster of people who all intend to vote for Trump, but so long as the sample is random, they'll be averaged out by those who don't intend to do so, and as the sample gets bigger, the average of the sample gets closer and closer to the true proportion. It's a bit like tossing coins, I think. If you toss 5 coins, at some point you may well get like 4 heads or 4 tails or something. If you toss 1 million coins, you will literally get like 500,000 of each. The problem comes if the sample isn't really random. After what was perceived as the disastrous first debate for Barack Obama against Mitt Romney in 2012, Democratic voters became less likely to answer surveys. I think that's the way of saying. That's kind of their way of saying when the phone rings, you pick it up, you say, "Bugger off! I don't want. It's my business. Go away." That kind of thing. As a result, poll results shifted towards Romney, even though his actual support didn't increase. It's just that the samples were biased towards Romney voters. If the sample is bad, the results follow. To achieve that randomness, telephone polls generally make use of a random digit dial system in which a computer uses predetermined set of area codes and exchanges the middle 3 digits which identify the service provider and area, and randomly generate the last 4 digits if trying to reach a particular population. like a racial or occupational group. Researchers can purchase lists of numbers, then randomly pick from that list. Despite these efforts to achieve a random sample, though, response rates remain shockingly low, especially among younger people, Spanish speakers, evangelicals, and African Americans. That's a politically correct way of saying black people. To correct for this sort of bias in the samples, pollsters made use of weighting. In its simplest form, a pollster might find that only 6% of the sample is black compared to 12% of the American public. As such, a pollster might use weighting to, in effect, counter black response twice towards the overall result. When weighting is done this way, based on known demographic factors like race, age, and gender, it's not too problematic, but it's still as much an art as a science. There's also not complete agreement about what factors should be weighted. If the poll has a low proportion of Democrats or Republicans, it should be weighted. Should weighting be used to correct for it? So basically, they phone people up. They literally phone people up and ask them what they think. And they do it in such a way as they can gauge a perfect cross-section of the entire American public. And they do the same in this country as well. Oh, we got... George says, I don't trust polling at all. It's quite obvious here in Scotland on the independence issue that polls are used to promote a position by getting a result based on skewed questions. This is then used as evidence that a certain cause has momentum behind it. Yeah, George, I'm actually coming to that because I think there is possible that faulty data has been put into these polls, and there's a reason for that. Well, there's a reason why they would make the polls look different to what the opinion really is. I'm going to look at 4 separate companies because there's more than a dozen of these polling companies that are used in that aggregate collector that I told you about before. I'll just go through 4 of them. The first one is probably the best known and most widespread. It's called Ipsos Mori. Now, if you look up what that means in Latin, run it through Google Translate. I'm not kidding you here. It means they die. Ipsos Mori. Check it out for yourself and see. But here we go. Ipsos Mori is a market research company based in London, England, and formed by a merger of Ipsos UK and Mori on October 2005. Originally founded by Mark Abrams called RSL Services in 1946 and operated until it was acquired by Ipsos UK and became Ipsos UK in 1991. Methodology. Ipsos Mori's research is conducted by a wide range of methodologies using computer-assisted telephone interviewing. Now that's what I just described, where they select phone numbers at random to phone for people and wait until someone will actually answer their questions. And it's not just political. They do things such as market surveys and what sort of washing powder do you use, that sort of thing. I mean, these people have never called me. I'd tell them to bugger off if they did. But the chances are you'll get called by one of these people at some point. And it says here, as well as face-to-face and internet service. Face-to-face. Face-to-face is like what they call focus groups, where they literally get some people together and have conversations and get opinions from that. And it's what Adam Curtis, the documentary, The Trap, called Five People Sipping Wine in Kettering. The many telephone surveys use a system called random digit dialing, and that sounds like what I just discovered, didn't it? Yes, that's Ipsos Mori. There's another one here. This is the second one that's often. This is another very well-known one in the list. It's called Rasmussen Reports. It's an American polling company founded in 2003. It engages in political commentary and collection, publication, distribution of public opinion polling information. Rasmussen Reports conducts nightly tracking and national and state levels elections, politics, current events, consumer confidence, business topics, and United States President's job approval ratings. It says here, surveys are conducted by a combination of automatic public opinion polling involving pre-recorded telephone inquiries. Oh, right. So you get like you have to, does that mean you get a voicemail sort of thing? I don't know. But it's interesting. I mean, it's the same sort of thing though, phoning people up. Now this is another one here. This is called the U.S. Center for Political Future, also known as USC Dornsife. It's a centre. It's not just a polling. It's a political think tank as well. The centre was established in order to combat uncivil political discourse and promote bipartisan, fact-based dialogue on national issues based on political and social sciences. Okay. And it just gives a list of the leadership. The director is called Robert Shrum, co-director Mike Murphy, no relation to Nile. This guy though, Shrum, is a Democratic strategist and speechwriter for politicians including Ted Kennedy, Bill Clinton, Al Gore, John Kerry. Oh right. Murphy is a veteran Republican candidate and has worked with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's right, by bed. Yes, indeed. Jeb Bush, John McCain, and Mitt Romney. All right, not Trump. He may be a never Trumper. Because the thing about Trump is, even though he went on the Republican ticket, he is essentially a de facto independent, isn't he? He is really. Michael E. Snow. Hi, Michael. How are you? Said, if they wanted him out, they could do it. Elections mean nothing at the end of the day. It depends. It depends, Michael. Normally, I would say yes. In the pre-2016 world, what the Trump phenomenon could not have happened. Trump would never have even got anywhere near the White House, let alone in it. If by some oversight he got in it, he wouldn't be there long. He'd be destroyed by a scandal, the way Nixon was, or he'd be killed like Kennedy. Peter Arnold, how are you? Good to see you too, buddy. Good to see you too. So, now, there's one more company I want to talk about here. This is called Gallup. Now, Gallup is this is actually the most famous pollster company, and it is a company founded by George Gallup in 1935. So it's a lot older than the others, because they tend to be quite new, these companies. It's a workers' cooperative, has over 50 offices around the globe. Here we go. Headquarters at the Gallup building. 30 to 40 offices globally. Offices at the central offices at the Riverfront campus in Omaha, Nebraska, and has over 2,000 employees. And it sounds like it's basically a methodology. It's built on 2 surveys. Gallup conducts over 500 interviews across the US per day, with 70% on cell phones, that's mobile phones for British people, and 30% on landlines. So again, phone lines, it says here, Gallup daily tracking methodology relies on live interviewers, dual frame random digit dial sampling. Which sounds, again, they're using a system, a computer generated system to dial random numbers. Now, how would you, supposing these polls are wrong, because they just seem so, as Sargon said, it just doesn't fit what he observes in the enthusiasm gap in the world around them. To say that Biden is leading him by 10.1 points. If the polls are wrong, how's that possible? Because we're talking about dozens of different companies, independent companies. The only way I could think it's possible, and I've got no evidence for this, I'm just speculating. I don't know specifically this. I don't have the information, but could the National Security Agency do this? Could they somehow make this happen? To do so wouldn't actually be that difficult. They would just have to fiddle in some way with the methodology that these companies use, and they could do it to all of them, to break down the randomization process. So in other words, when the computer selects random numbers, the NSA diverts the call to a less random source. Just a thought. Why would they do it? Why? Well, I think psychological warfare. I think these polls are intended to demoralize Republican voters. They can look at this and they think, what's the point? We can't win. I'm not going to bother voting. It's just too weird that this has suddenly happened. I was listening to a radio show today on my earphones while I was at work. Yes, I'm lucky enough to have one of those jobs, where a guy was saying, this is bound to happen because there's been so much immigration to the United States, especially from Mexico. that this has kind of created a supermajority for the Democrats, because the culture we're talking about, Latin Americans, they tend to vote for the Democrats. So with a huge influx of people from Mexico, it's going to create more and more voters for the Democrats. But that's over a long-term period. That's true. However, this doesn't explain the sudden change that we're seeing now in just 4 years. It can't be. It's not like we just had half of Mexico move in the last 4 years. That would explain it, but it hasn't happened. This is the thing, so that's not quite the same. Now, another question we've got to talk about is vote rigging. That is directly fiddling with the ballot. Now, electoral fraud is a terrifying thing. It happens more than we thought. Now, George, I think you mentioned Scotland. Who was it who mentioned Scotland just now? I think it was George who talked about Scotland. Yeah. Just going to say hello to Peter. Peter says, do you think the Democrats might be beaten by themselves, with Harris looking quite divisive? Well, I think you could see, Peter, the way they're panicking right now means they're sometimes turning against. They're sometimes lashing out in panic, like you get if you get a lot of monkeys up a tree in a flood. As the water gets higher, they start attacking themselves for the best branches and things like that. It could be something like that will happen. Michael Snow says, think Gallup used to do the top 40 music charts. Yes, that's how they. I used to wonder that when I was a kid. When I was a little kid, how do the charts work? You know, when you watch Top of the Pops, they don't know. They don't have a list of every single record that's been bought by everybody, and the answer is they just go to certain. They just go to certain record shops and just ask, a handful of record shops randomized, saying which records have you bought, and from that they can work out how many you have actually done. And indeed, they do. Gallup are the people who do that for the BBC, for Top of the Pops, and for Radio 1 and that. Hi, Emma. Emma Sansom's there. Hi, Emma. How are you? Peter says, the polls were wrong for 2016 US election and Brexit. They said Johnson Corbyn was too tight to call. Yeah, they well, in 2016, it was within the margin of error. I mean, if there had been no electoral fraud in 2016, and there was, and there was, I don't know about polling fraud specifically, but they were messing with the ballots in 2016 for certain. So that's been proven. I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. The thing about Boris, I mean, the polls got that wrong as well. They were expecting the Conservatives to get the most votes, but I covered it myself. If you remember the videos I made. They look like Boris might end up with a hung parliament, being the biggest party in a hung parliament. But then he gets this massive majority and knocks Labour out to lunch. So yeah, it is possible for the polls to be very badly wrong without fiddling. So I agree, it's perfectly possible, and that's another possibility. And Peter also says here, I think a lot of people that vote Trump don't take part in surveys. Also, many don't want to admit they're Trump voters. Well, funny enough, Tim Pool made a video saying exactly like that. Peter, he actually said that there was what he called the secret Trump voter, which could explain these anomalies in the polls. I mean, a lot of people are trying to explain these anomalies in the polls using various ways, because regardless of your opinion and who you support, you can't deny that there's this weird enthusiasm gap, opinion poll kind of anomaly. Tina McGraw, vote B.E. Jones. Yes, vote for me, guys. I'll honestly. If I get my green card, that's it. I'm running for the White House. Any American ladies want to marry me? Julie Phelps says, the Illuminati have a back door to all systems, according to their book, The 55 Tenets of the Illuminati, and could perhaps interfere with algorithms. However, things are a little more complex than that. Julie, I've heard of that book. I've not read it. But they do, indeed. And when we know that the NSA has a backdoor to the iPhone, doesn't it? Because there was a big fuss about it. That they actually had a way of breaking the Apple's own encryption. And they insisted on it. There was actually a court case about it. I suspect that they are doing something to these polls. And like I said, it wouldn't be easy. They could use some kind of call divert algorithm so that when the pollsters are trying to be random, they break that randomization by directing them towards Biden supporters. And we've already seen them fiddling with that. I mean, Biden did a public event, one of the few public events he's ever done. I think he only managed to get about 25 people. Trump can fill a stadium or aircraft hangars, Biden just gets 20 people in a school gym. But it turned they were supposedly undecided voters. It turned out they were Biden supporters. How about that, eh? How about that? So I think people talk about electoral fraud. I mean, there's even people saying, well, even Trump himself said the only way they can win is to rig the ballot. The thing is, if they rig the ballot, they haven't won. They fiddle with the election, you haven't won. I mean, we're so complacent about this. An election which is rigged is not an election at all. We might as well just not have it. We might as well just have a dictatorship. And people are getting kind of used to this. It's almost like we've given up on the idea of fair play. I mean, I'll give you a good example. I was talking with a brother Porter about the Massey Edge knows who this guy is, and I'm not going to say who he is, but Massey Edge knows who he is. You were talking about football, as you do with Porters. Porters love talking about football, and we talked about the 2005 World Cup final, which was won by France. If you remember, there was the final between France and Brazil, which was one of the worst games of football I've ever seen. Really lackluster. I mean, they were just sort of passing the ball, like pass it a little bit there, pass it a little bit there. It was a very, very bad match, and France won. And everyone thought that was a bit odd that Brazil it's almost like Brazil didn't want to win. And the funny thing is, then people harked back to something said in the first round by none other than Diego Maradona. Remember him? How could you forget him? He said the whole tournament was rigged so that France would win it. He said France are going to win it. It's rigged so that France win it. Now, no one really paid much attention to this alcoholic, overweight, old drug-addled old ex-footballer. No one paid much attention to him. But guess what? France went and won it. And I looked back and I thought, well, if anyone would know about cheating, it would be him, wouldn't it? He's the world's biggest cheat. And I raised this issue with my brother Porter, and he sort of shrugged his shoulders and he just said, well, that's all right. Maybe next year, maybe next time it'll be rigged so that England win it. And I thought, what? I was looking at a guy who is so accustomed to the idea of deceit that he's willing to simply to say, well, it doesn't matter anymore, even though it means that any football, he says, even if it happens in football, it doesn't matter. But if you accept that rigging takes place, then it ceases to be a competitive sport. It becomes a charade. It becomes like the old wrestling. You remember it was great fun, but of course no one took it seriously. Now, there's been several people bringing forward evidence that firstly the opinion. There's an interesting interview Alex Jones did with Laura Loomer, who's actually running in this election for the Congress, because it's not just the president who's elected; it's like the houses as well, like the two houses of the representatives and the Senate for the U.S. That's the other branch of government. Laura Loomer won her nomination for the Republicans for, I think, somewhere in Florida. I like Laura Loomer. She's very good. She's a very good sort of commentator. And she says not only does she's heard about the vote rigging scandals with the postal ballots, but that she talked about the enthusiasm gap, about how all her supporters are out on the streets. There's everywhere she goes, people are backing her up. Yet in her district, in her constituency, so to speak, it's like 53% pro-Biden. She says these opinion polls don't match what she's seeing with her boots on the ground. And then you see now James O'Keefe of Project Veritas revealed a video which should hopefully put Representative Ilhan Omar in jail. Ilhan Omar is the current representative to the 5th District of Minnesota, and she has been caught red-handed buying the ballots, the postal ballots of people, mostly old people, basically going around offering people money, mostly old people, to hand over their ballots so they can be used, postal ballots. And she's got several accomplices who've been filmed secretly. I'm like, what? It's like, this is incredible. And now, this is something that O'Keefe brought up in 2016. James O'Keefe, he brought up this subject in 2016 because the 2016 election was rigged as well. It was rigged too, and you got things such as people turning up with fake IDs to vote. They're all for the Democrats, all for Hillary. Now, a lot of money's involved in this. If you think about the amount of money, because Ilhan Omar reckons she's harvested, as they call it, over 300 ballot papers. Now, she's not going to hand those over a couple of quid each. She's going to need more money than that to buy these ballot papers. People aren't going to hand them over for nothing. Where's she getting the money from? Who's paying for all this? She won't get them off her congressional salary. It's highly organised. In 2016, the fake IDs, people with fake IDs, people voted under IDs that later turned out to be people who died. Some people voted more than once, it was discovered later on. Now, what's going on there? I mean, and this election is going to be particularly bad because there's going to be a lot of there's going to be more postal ballots than ever. That's another problem. Just going to adjust my notes slightly. Just let me do this. Now, here we go. Really, what should have happened? I was going to say, this should have been dealt with in 2016. It should have been pursued back then, but it wasn't. It was dropped. The issue was just basically put to one side because it didn't work because Trump won. But they should have been thinking about the future. This should have been nipped in the bud. Unfortunately, now we've got a much bigger problem to deal with in that respect. It says here this is about. This is interesting because I'll come back to that in a minute. Where's the poster? Voting by mail. I'm just adjusting my notes slightly because it's slightly going to be slightly different. I can make it slightly different to the last one. Okay, voting by mail. Voting by mail has become an increasingly common practice in the United States, with 25% of voters nationwide mailing their ballots in 2016 and 2018. That's during the midterm elections. This is odd, isn't it? Because I don't know about you guys. I mean, is anyone you in chat voted by mail? I mean, Peter says, I absolutely love the randomness of Trump. The Democrats and the media hate that they cannot second guess him. I know, yeah. His speech saying, "Hi, it's me, your favourite president." Yeah, she is. Oh, Lisa's just got home. She says, "Oh, hi. Say hi to us. Say hi to Lisa from me, Peter. Thanks." Have any of you voted by post? I mean, postal ballots was supposed to be something for people who can't get to the polling station. It's supposed to be something which you do if you're people who are disabled, people who are old, very old, can't get to the polling station, or expatriates, people who don't live in the country and want to vote. That's what it's supposed to be for. And now it seems like everyone, all the time, people have been asked to vote by post. And Peter says here, he seems to be the only mainstream top-flight politician that is talking a bit of stand against COVID. Yeah, Trump is. Johnson's making a hash of it. He is, yes. But Trump is telling the USA it's just a flu. Learn to live with it. Don't let it dominate your lives. It gives hope. Yeah, hope is everything in this. This is what Biden lacks. This is why the polls don't make sense, Peter. The Americans are not hopeless people. They are hopeful people. Americans generally are strong and forward-looking. They're not inspired by negativity and pessimism and, oh well, he'll do. That doesn't normally grab the Americans' attention. It doesn't normally win their hearts. Now, the thing about voting by post is it's become increasingly possible. Listen to this, right? Because of the COVID-19, mostly because of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's been predicted to cause a large increase in mail voting because of the possible danger of congregating at polling places. A state-by-state analysis concludes that 76% of Americans, 76%, are eligible to vote by mail in 2020, a record number. The analysis predicts that 80 million ballots could be cast by mail in 2020, more than double the number in 2016. The Postal Service sent a letter to multiple states in July 2020, warning that the service would not be able to meet the state's deadlines for requesting and casting last-minute absentee ballots. In addition to the anticipated high volume of mail ballots, the prediction was due in part to numerous measures taken by Louis DeJoy, the newly installed Postmaster General of the United States, including banning overtime and extra trips to deliver mail, which caused delays in delivering mail, and dismantling and removing hundreds of high-speed mail sorting machines from postal centers. The House of Representatives voted an emergency grant of $25 billion to the post office to facilitate the predicted flood of mail ballots. However, President Trump has repeatedly denounced mail voting, yes, even though he himself votes by mail in Florida, a form of absentee voting. Oh, come on. Oh, that's low-hanging fruit, that is, anyway. He's done several... President Trump has been very critical of voting by mail, often making allegations of massive voter fraud. And he's right to. In August 2020, a federal judge ordered Trump's campaign and the Republican Party to produce evidence of such fraud in Pennsylvania. In September 2020, FBI Director Christopher Wray, who was appointed by Trump, testified under oath that the FBI had not seen historically any kind of coordinated national voter fraud effort in a major election, whether it's by mail or otherwise. And that was obviously before James O'Keefe's video came out. What James O'Keefe has discovered is incredible, because yes, it's just one district in one state, but where she's doing it, others are going to. She's not doing it off her own bat. Where would Ilhan Omar get the money to do something like that? Where would they get the money to do something like that? Oh, it's just a sec. All right. And here we come to this. And there's been several other occasions I've actually thought about. I've found as well. What you got to realise about voting by post, if you do vote by post, and as it seems that the majority of people in the United States are going to be voting by post. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented, but it makes electoral fraud so much easier. Because if you vote by post, when you post your letter, when you post your letter, basically what happens is you get your polling card. In a normal election, you get given a polling card at the polling station. You put a cross on a piece of paper yourself, and you put it in a sealed box. That box is then taken to the sorting centre, the counting centre, which is usually, there's one in each constituency. It's usually a town hall. You can go along and you can even watch the counting being done. I've done that. I did that during the Brexit referendum because I didn't trust the buggers. You can go and watch it being done. If you vote by post, you get like a piece of paper, which is like a ballot paper. You put a cross on who you want to vote for. You put it in an envelope. You seal the envelope, and you put it in the post box. The postman comes and takes it away, and it's complete out of your sight, out of mind. You don't know where your vote is going. You don't know how it's going to be registered. You don't even know if it's going to be registered at all. For all you know, it could just be dumped. And indeed, this is what's happened. It's being dumped. They're finding these things dumped everywhere. This is why Trump put out that tweet saying, urging people to check. You get a number with your postal ballot. You can go along to your polling station, give the official your number. The official will then check to see if your vote has been registered. If it hasn't, it means that your vote has gone missing and you can do it again. Honestly, a mail-in ballot is not worth the paper it's written on. Literally, it's literally not like. I think the polling, the polls designed to demoralise people so that they don't vote or vote. I say even if you decide to vote for Trump. At 42%, 10 points down, you think, well, I'll only do it by post. I'm not going to stand in the rain outside a polling station just to vote for a guy who's never going to win. I'll do it by post. Well, if you vote by post, it's the same as not doing it. As you may think, well, what are you talking about, Ben? What are you talking? How are they going to do that? How are they going to go through all the mail-in ballots and sort them all? How are they going to go through every single mail-in ballot and sort out the ones and get rid of the Trump ones and keep the Biden ones. So you imagine the CIA sitting around a big table with these big piles of envelopes, they're sort of steaming them open with a kettle, like like the spies do, pulling it out and says, that's a Trump one, chuck it in the bin. Steam another one open it. Oh, that's Biden, we'll keep that one. You don't have to do that. You don't have, this is the point, you don't have to do that. All you need to do, if you're running this electoral fraud, and you have agents within the US Postal Service, you know certain areas, certain districts, even certain towns, certain streets even, around certain post boxes, you know that these areas are more likely to vote for this candidate you don't want, like the non-establishment candidate, Trump in this case. You know that these areas are going to be mostly Trump voters. Those are the ones you get rid of. You target those particular areas for disposing of the envelopes. And disposing of them's easy. All you have to do is just put them in a pulping machine, in a shredder, just chuck them in a river, or put them in the bin, is what some people are doing. People are finding them in dumpsters. Or you can just tear them open, and if you tear them open, I think that's a spoiled ballot. So don't vote by post. People think, well, it would be a massive operation, wouldn't it? Going around every single Trump voting area and getting rid of all the ballots from that area. But you don't have to. These, as I said earlier, elections in the US have always been very close for the last few years. Always been very close. This is the first one with a significant poll advantage for one candidate. Elections in the US, Trump won by a very narrow margin. Most candidates win by very narrow margins, and the margins are often in what they call the battleground states, because because it's a federation. The US, it has a different system. It doesn't have a popular vote, there is a popular vote is counted, but it doesn't really count for anything. You have an electoral college which deals with the certain states, because there's 50 states, and they vary in size and population. The battleground states are the ones which could go either way, most likely to go either way, whereas things like California and New York are very pro-Democrat. Texas, Arizona, these are very traditionally pro-Republican, although Arizona, I think, is one of these that's supposed to flip according to the polls, duh. And there's Florida, of course, I've already mentioned, that's always a battleground state. All you need to do is fiddle with about a couple of thousand votes, sometimes just a couple of thousand votes, is all that's necessary to tip that state one way or the other, and thereby tip the election to one candidate or the other. It doesn't have to be a major operation. What O'Keefe discovered with Ilhan Omar is a significant part of it. So that's the non-election I was talking about. That's what I mean by the non-election. Peter says, let's hope the Russians get involved again. Well, Peter, I would, if we're gonna if the other side are gonna cheat, what are we gonna do? And I'll come on to that actually. Peter says he's doing most things right. I pray he gets elected. Yeah, me too. Well, he's not going to get elected, Peter. But he's not going to get elected because there's not going to be an election. As I said, there's just going to be this fraud. But there's good news. I'll come on to that in a minute. He stopped funding the WHO. Yes. He pulled USA out of the Paris Climate Accord and the World Economic Forum. Exactly. That the USA will not be intimidated by fear. It won't now. I mean, USA used to be a real lackey for those organisations. Jump into attention. Not anymore. Peter says, I can't even comprehend a term run by Biden-Harris. Oh, well, it'll be... I'll come on to that in a minute as well, because Styx Hexenhammer was talking about that earlier, about the prospects of that. Nope. Yeah. It's this is the thing. I mean, this is where we come on to what's going to happen next. Now, firstly, as I said, on the 4th of November, I'm almost certain it's going to be announced that Joe Biden has won the election. This does not mean that he has. Now, this is interesting here. This is from Wikipedia. The potential rejection of election results. Even now, this is Wikipedia here, right? This is pretty incredible. I'm really impressed with the way Trump is handling this. It's actually more than I could ever hope for. During the election, multiple articles have been published suggesting that Trump may or will not accept the election results owing primarily to his tweets suggesting that the election will be rigged against him and his own suggestions that he will not accept electoral defeat. Oh my goodness me, you mean they're actually fiddling the election? Exactly like James O'Keefe has proved, yes? He should order a raid to the head of FBI to deal with it. On July the 19th, Trump declined to answer whether he would accept the results, telling the Fox News anchor Chris Wallace, who went on to be the moderator in the debate, remember, "I'll have to see. No, I'm not going to say yes, and I'm not going to say no." At a August the 17th event campaign in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, Trump said that the only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged. Well, of course, it won't be a loss. You can't lose an election by a rigged election. A rigged election is null and void, by definition. Trump repeated this sentiment during an appearance at the 2020 Republican National Convention. At a September the 19th rally in Fayetteville, North Carolina, Trump declared that, "You can't have Biden as your president. Maybe I'll sign an executive order that you cannot have him as your president." Well, Trump can't sign an executive order saying that you can't have someone as a president if they've won an election. But the point is, will it be a proper election? I think the answer is no. On September the 23rd, Trump again declined to commit to a peaceful transition of power. After the election, congressional Republicans rebuked Trump by saying there would be a peaceful transition if Trump lost. Yeah, Mitch McConnell, president of the Senate, said he sort of like gave out the party line, but Trump himself was stuck by his guns. They did not explain how they would guarantee such a transition if Trump were to refuse leaving the presidency. This has been described as a threat to upend the constitutional order. You see, it's not upending the constitutional order if the election could be proved to be fake. Trump also stated he expected the Supreme Court to decide the election, and he wanted a conservative majority in the case of an election dispute. Yeah, and one of these amazing things happens, right? You know that the good guys sometimes die conveniently. Well, one of the bad guys died very conveniently. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a very pro-democratic judge on the Supreme Court, and died, which means Trump can now replace her with someone on his side, and he has Amy Barrett. And Trump also said this in April 2020, Biden suggested that Trump may try and delay the election, saying that he's got to try and kick back the election somehow, come up with some rationale why it can't be held. On July the 30th, Trump tweeted that with universal mail-in voting, not absentee voting, which is good, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history, and asked if it should be delayed until people can safely cast ballots in person. Yeah, exactly. Experts have indicated that for the election to be legally delayed, such a decision must be undertaken by Congress. It has been noted by several legal experts that the Constitution sets the end of the presidential and vice presidential terms as January the 20th, a hard deadline which cannot be altered by Congress. That's Inauguration Day. So what would happen? Obviously, firstly, Biden's not really going to win. He's not going to win. And I'll see what people say in the chat. Jack says no president ever said them things or done them things before. No, he has. Trump has completely deviated from the script. Like I've never seen anyone else do so before. For that alone, I'd like to see President Trump get re-elected. If only to see or how he will backtrack on all he has said. Oh, he won't. He will do what he has literally done what he can. I mean, the thing about Trump is he makes promises and people say he hasn't kept his promises, he hasn't built the wall. Well, he's built 100 miles of wall. They say it took him 3 years just to get it past the Ninth Circuit judge. See, the Democrats, they've been slowing things down through their influence in the judiciary. He's not a dictator. That's the thing. I mean, Styx Hexenhammer has not really come to grips with the issues that I talk about here, like the voter fraud. And he just said that he talked about a Biden victory. The thing is, he said that we'll get through it. He says but we'll see stagnation. The progress, this upwardly upwardly mobile direction the country's had over the last few years, getting better and better and better, it'll flatline, it'll stop, and it may even decline. There'll be an economic decline. There may well be more. The U.S. may become more aggressive in terms of its foreign policy, because Biden and his party are not peacemakers. Trump is a peacemaker. Biden is a warmonger, like all the others are. Just like Clinton, just like Bush, just like they all are. And Obama, of course, one of the most aggressive warlike presidents the country's ever had, dropping bombs in Pakistan for the first time ever. If Sticks says we'll survive, we would survive 4 years of Biden in the White House. But I don't. This is what he said. I don't just want to survive. I want to thrive, and that's good. That's exactly my thought entirely, and it's true. I mean, a Biden win, even for the people who don't. I was going to say support him. They don't really support him. They just don't like Trump. If Biden were to become the president, it would be a very Pyrrhic victory, wouldn't it? It would be enormously anticlimactic. I mean, can you imagine the huge crowds in the Mall at the inauguration, with Biden putting his hand on the Bible and swearing to be the president? I can't. I think a few people walking their dogs might stop and look, but even the people who support him will probably not turn out to cheer him on. They don't support him. They don't like him. They don't want him as their president. They'll just think, oh, we got rid of Trump. That's good. I don't think that's going to happen, though. Based on what Trump has said so far, I don't think it doesn't look like that. It's going to be as simple as that. Now, what's going to happen after November the 4th? It's going to be a huge test. It's going to be a huge test of how powerful the deep state really are in this situation compared to the good guys that the 17th letter of the alphabet talks about. It's going to be basically a tussle between these two forces, and we're going to see exactly who has the upper hand here. Because Trump has indicated he will not accept the results of the election. Why should he? Why should he? Why should he leave office as a result of a fraudulent election, which he can prove to be fraudulent? The first thing he should do, order a full inquiry. Order the FBI director, Wray, to get it done. If he won't, sack him and put someone else who will. To do a full investigation into everything that James O'Keefe and a lot of other, Alex Jones, a lot of other amateur journalists have been suggesting. A full investigation. If one single vote can be found to be tampered with, then the election is null and void. And he should refuse to step down for the presidency. I mean, he always has to appear reasonable, so it would be conditional. He would say something like, I will not leave the White House until we have another election that was fair. And he must agree if we hold a second election, he must suggest a second election, which will be conducted properly with full national and international supervision. So they basically need something like a transparency in terms of the various to eliminate the possibility of fraud. And then if he's voted out, he'll say, "I'll step down." But on no account should he step down. If this is a fraudulent election. Do you know what this is? What's good is it's very different to the Bush-Gore situation. Obviously, there was a legal challenge to Bush's presidency from Al Gore in 2000, but at that time they were both candidates fighting for an empty seat because it was the end of a term. There was no incumbent. In this case, it's easier because Trump is the incumbent. Trump is the president. He has actively to step down or be removed from the White House. He's not equal to Biden. They're both fighting for the empty seat, which again indicates that the deep state are really desperate to get Trump out and not give him another 4 years. They don't want him even have 4 more years. He's that damaging to their New World Order agenda. But so Trump he will challenge it in the courts. Honestly, if that doesn't work, if the deep state really has the power to corrupt even that, then I think he should go further than that. And this is going to be controversial, what I'm going to say. But I think he should use his influence with the Department of Defense to use lawful force to prevent him being removed from the White House. And I know what that means. I know that the implication is that this could become violent. Well, you see, violence might be necessary in this case because the deep state is violent. The deep state has used violence and may well continue to try and get its way with the United States of America, and Trump is standing in their way. He has to defend himself to defend his country. And that is the role of the armed forces. The armed forces are not there to be sent to some godforsaken part of the world to blow up people so an oil company can build a pipeline through their village. That's not the role of the armed forces. That's not the legitimate role of the armed forces. The legitimate role of the armed forces is to defend the country from enemies, external and internal. And in this case, you've got both. So he's perfectly within his right to use military force to prevent himself being ousted from power. And I would support him in that. I would be 100% behind him in that. I don't know what's going to happen next. I really don't. Paul Armstrong says, I wish Jack McLam was alive to see this play out. I do too, Paul. I really do. And I wish Jim Mars was as well. It'd be wonderful. It would be wonderful if those guys were with us. Oh, yeah. It would be great. Julie Phelps says, it will usher in the New World Order monetary system like the Civil War in the USA. Well, they're going to try and do that, aren't they, with the Great Reset? They want us to have the carbon credits. They want to change all the values of all the currencies and then bring in carbon credits, but I mustn't let that happen. I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm sort of sitting there thinking, all I know is that there's going to be, these two forces are on a collision course right now. The forces of good and evil are like that. This is literally like Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker fighting it out at the end of Return of the Jedi. Or the other one, Empire Strikes Back. Or both of them, actually, yeah, both. It's literally like the final countdown. I mean, it's going to be exciting. It's not going to be boring, that's for certain. So, I don't know what else going to happen next, but I will be covering this. I'll be doing more little videos like this live on Facebook and YouTube to cover the situation as it develops. The recording of this will be available on Facebook, and I will upload it to YouTube and BitChute and the other sites as well which I use. So if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you very much. I hope you got something from it, and do keep an eye on my channel, and indeed send me a friend request on Facebook as well, and you'll find out more about me and everything I do. Follow me on Twitter and things like that. But everyone, just want to say to Peter, to Julie, Paul, and everyone else, Tino, and everyone else in the chat box, Emma and Michael and George, Ninja Pete, that's a good name, and everyone else in the and Donna and Mandy and everyone else in the, and Massey Edge and Yam and everyone else. Rob is there too. Yeah, a brilliant quote from Wilhelm Reich there, really is. I want to say thank you all very much for watching. Thanks, Annalisa's here. Hi Annalisa, how are you? It's been a good live stream. I'm going to end it now and keep an eye on everything that's going on, because there's a lot to come, because this is obviously a current event that's developing daily by day by day. We're just 3 weeks now, just over from the election. It's going to be fun. It's going to affect the entire world, what happens here. I know the United States is no longer the global superpower it used to be, but it's still a very important centre of geopolitical force in this world, and will continue to be so for many decades to come. So what happens in the United States affects the whole world. It'll affect Britain, especially here in Britain, where Britain and Ireland have a very close cultural and political link with the United States. Probably closer, I would say, even than it's linked to Canada or Mexico. So my country, and if you live in Ireland, your country will be even more affected by this. Cheers, Tino. Cheers, Rob. Annalise, everyone else, thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.